Listen, I'm gonna tell you how Mortal Kombat 12 can avoid Mortal Kombat 11's biggest storytelling mistake. Now, Mortal Kombat 11's story was interesting nonetheless, but suffered from a few shortcomings and was awkwardly paced. MK12 need to avoid these mistakes. We gonna talk all about it. Mortal Kombat 11 is a fantastic fighting game, no doubt. We all can agree on that. Well, at least most of us can. But Mortal Kombat 12 needs to avoid its storytelling errors. MK11 was arguably the most ambitious installment in NetherRealm fighting game history, featuring multiple incarnations of the same character and a time-traveling story. Now, however, it also suffered from some pacing issues that Mortal Kombat 12 may wish to avoid repeating in order to be a better game than its predecessor. I'm just being honest with you. Although there was some writing hiccups, such as Sindel's character ruining the villainy mood that she had by her being good and then her being evil again, it was confusing. Nobody liked that at all. Nobody liked that happened in Mortal Kombat Aftermath. Now, the key issue with Mortal Kombat 11's story, as I mentioned, is pacing. I'm about to give you an example. While it would admittedly be a bit of a challenge to incorporate every member of the MK's large roster into the story, we acknowledge that. There are still plenty of plausible ways to do it while making sure that the narrative maintains a decent flow. However, the story doesn't allow proper time to build and the events feel haphazard and rushed as the result, basically. Now, evidence number one. The very first chapter of Mortal Kombat 11's story displays these flaws prominently. The game begins in the middle of a massive war, as I remember to the best of my knowledge, featuring several named characters. While beginning in Midas is a well-known written trope, Mortal Kombat 11 throws too much at the player too quickly. After several fights and action scenes, Sonya is clapped. They clapped Sonya before the first chapter ends. She gone. She got squashed like a bug. This is all going on at the same time. You gotta remember, we had Ronda Rousey's poor acting as MK's Sonya. That doesn't help at all. Now, the game's narrative doesn't give the player time to rest, and as a result, there isn't an effective build-up to the death. The player don't have time to let loose. They don't have time to let the loss hit until after the chapter is already over. As an opening for the game, nah, that's moving too quickly for Sonya's death to even sink in at all. That was just awkward. Now, number two, speaking of awkward, my second point. Mortal Kombat 11's awkward pacing detracts from the original story. What I mean by that is this. I'll give you another example. Scorpion and Sub-Zero's confrontation with Frost in Mortal Kombat 11 suffers from a lack of time required for investment. The duo's interactions with her to take place over the course of one chapter, compressing their storyline. Frost was Sub-Zero's former student turned rogue, so the two of them clashing should have significant emotional weight. Instead, they only fought once. What's up with that? Y'all didn't even use that story. Y'all just kind of touched on it and that was it. And on top of that, Scorpion and Sub-Zero just moved on. Now, Mortal Kombat isn't shy about referencing the past, as shown by Shiva's MK11 intro carrying Motaro's head. Even this is point number 3, when Shiva was carrying Motaro's head in her intro, it's like, so it seems odd that this wasn't explored more either. Why is she carrying his head? We not gonna get the backstory to that? Now, if Sub-Zero and Frost's backstory has been discussed further, or if they had fought again later in the story, there would have been more impact. Instead, the scene fall flats, and it's kind of the thing that Mortal Kombat 12 needs to avoid. Stop using storylines and stop using characters once. Really use that storyline and get the most out of it. Now, a fighting game is expected to have frequent fights in the story. We all know that. But Mortal Kombat 11 raises the stakes far too damn high from the start, because the game starts by throwing players into the middle of a war shortly followed by the death of Sonya. As mentioned earlier, for those of you just tuning in, it dulls the rest of the plot's impact. The player has already seen the climax right at the beginning, and as a result, a lot of people feels like it should, it should just go through the motions because the players feel like they've already seen the peak. Now, NetherRealm writers can make good stories. Don't get me wrong, they can make good stories even in small doses, as seen in Rambo's arcade ending in MK11, but the game's main story could have been better. While the final showdown against Kronika does still feel powerful, that's because it had the whole game to build up, and it remains effective as a result. The issue is that the rest of the story wasn't able to create such an impact, so Mortal Kombat 12 needs to make sure that all of its key moments are given equal significance. You can't put all your significance in one storyline, you just can't do that. Now, where Mortal Kombat 11 ultimately failed, no pun intended, where they ultimately failed in its storytelling was its lackluster pacing and awkward timing for climactic events. These issues can be easily fixed if NRS plans to include another overreaching story mode in the next installment. There is still a good chance for MK12 to have a great story provided the storytelling learns from the series' past mistakes, but it's up to NRS to implement that and to accept responsibility on that. I just look at it this way: MK12 has the potential to be one of the best fighting games on the planet. I got my fingers crossed that they don't blow this, because we really need this. We really need a good MK game. 11 was okay, it was good, y'all did y'all thing, but it's not MK9, it's not MKX. It's not those games. Y'all did y'all thing on those. I know y'all trying to go after esports or whatever it is, but giving the people is a good game, it's the way to go. That's what's going to get you there. So I don't want to hold you guys up too much, but I want to pass this question off to you guys in the comment section below. How do you feel about the story of Mortal Kombat 11? Was it good? Was it bad? And should Mortal Kombat 12 have anything to be worried about? Sound off in the comment section below.